I'm Betsy DeWitt. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Brookline online discussion. Our mission is educating voters, and we are pleased to have you with us this morning. And today we'll hear about two very different warrant articles, but they have a common theme, and that is to modify current town practice. First, we will hear about warrant article number 31 that is scheduled now to be voted after the Thanksgiving break. It is a proposal to modify the process for managing complaints that are currently, the system is laid out under Town Bylaw Article 3.14. That is the bylaw that established the Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. Our speaker on the proposal to amend that bylaw is Petitioner Bernard Greene, who is also a member of the Select Board. He will be followed by Kia Zeal, who is a member of the Commission, and for the record, the Commission opposes the warrant article. Second, we will hear about Fall Town Meeting warrant article number 15. That is now scheduled to be voted on November 29th, also after the Thanksgiving break. That is a proposal to limit marijuana retail licenses to a total of 4. Our speakers are petitioners Sherrod Duffield, Bruce Levin, and Aon Wang. We will also hear from Mike Sandman, chair of the Cannabis Mitigation Committee, also a member of the Select Board, who will explain the current licensing procedures and status for marijuana retail licenses. All of that said, I am now happy to share and turn over to our first speaker, Select Board member Bernard Greene. You have the microphone, Bernard.
Thank you, Betsy. As Betsy said, I'm Bernard Greene, a member of the Select Board. So let's talk about Warrant Article 31. I drafted Warrant Article 31 after the Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations told us in no uncertain terms at a public meeting that was recorded on June 15, 2022, that they were not going to make any revisions to their amendments to Bylaw 3.14 that established the Commission. And that they were not going to return to town meeting with a revised amendment as was requested by town meeting in the fall. Town meeting asked them to revise their amendment to address certain major problems with the amendment submitted. Two of the biggest ones that everyone probably knows about is that the Commission amendment would have the Commission or members, volunteers on a committee would give them subpoena power and the right to levy fines for violations for discrimination allegations. That amendment would have created an adversarial and punitive and quasi-judicial process for handling complaints of discrimination. I didn't think that that was appropriate. And since the Commission was not going to draft a reasonable and workable complaint process, I had to do it myself. And so I did. And the result is Warrant Article 31. Let me start by acknowledging that, yes, Warrant Article 31 is somewhat long and detailed, but at its root, it's not complex. It has two basic, easy to understand purposes, which make it easy to digest and understand what we're trying to do here. I'll call those purposes Purpose A and Purpose B, just to make it easy to talk about. I could have called it Thing A and Thing B, but I thought that'd be too cute. Purpose A is a plain and straightforward process for addressing complaints of discrimination in Brookline. And Warrant Article 31 is primarily intended to fix the complaint process, It does a lot of other things, but its primary purpose is to fix the complaint process. Purpose B is an appropriate role for the commission to play in helping to make Brookline a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community where people are respectful of each other and live in harmony despite our differences. Purpose A, how Warrant Article 31 handles complaints. First part here. The director's office will be the primary forum for complaints of discrimination under Warrant Article 31. The diversity office now plays that role, and the commission is currently not involved in any serious sense in the complaint process, despite being given such a role in the current iteration of Bylaw 3.14. Today, complaints are fairly easily filed with the diversity office using a form on the office's webpage. Most complaints involve ADA violations, which the office can quickly correct. ADA violations are civil rights violations, but not the type of civil rights violations that require a federal case in order to give the complainant an effective remedy. There are also specific forms for Asian American hate incidents and complaints related to police-civilian interactions. These forms will continue to be used under Warrant Article 31. Warrant Article 31 lists 6 steps that the director can take to determine whether to handle a complaint or if there is an off-ramp to another body or to a quick resolution. First, the director determines whether the complaint is plausibly valid, a defined term in the article. Second, if plausibly valid, the director determines whether on its face it is better handled in an adversarial forum that has the powers, the authorities, and the resources that a town commission of volunteers will not have to provide a real remedy for complainants. These could include the slow-moving and often denigrated MCAD, but also the federal EEOC, the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, which has a very active civil rights division, and the Brookline Police Department, or the Select Board. For example, and we'll go into an example later on. Well, an example. If there's a complaint of discrimination with respect to public accommodations, the Select Board has the power to revoke a business's license, as we did a few years ago with a restaurant on Harvard Street, Tam Kosher Chinese Restaurant. We were able to revoke the license and fortunately find a replacement owner for this very important institution in the Orthodox Jewish community on Harvard Street. Third, the director determines whether there is a reason he or she cannot or should not handle the complaint, and the town should engage in an outside fact finder. Fourth, the director then determines whether the director and town administrator can fix the problem sort of informally. For example, I think I mentioned earlier ADA complaints, which are civil rights complaints, but typically that can be handled by the town administrator and the director, or Sarah Kaplan in the director's office, who's our ADA coordinator, talking to either a private person or a town department about an obstruction on the street that is preventing someone from using the highways or using sidewalks. So that's an example of the easy way in which many of these ADA complaints can be solved, and is the warrant article provides for that type of resolution just through the director and the town administrator working together to find a good remedy. Fifth, if the complaint cannot be resolved by the above steps, the director then does an investigation. Now remember, the director we're talking about is Lloyd Gelano, or any director would be like Lloyd Gelano, highly trained with experience in conflict resolution and civil rights and human rights issues. And he is able to do a competent investigation. Following the investigation, number 6, and a determination that the complaint is still plausibly valid, The Warrant article has the director put together a resolution plan for the parties. And this is really key here. It's the difference between a reconciliation or mediation and reconciliation complaint process and one that is punitive and is not intended to further community relations. That plan can propose a non-adversarial resolution of the complaint, or such as mediation or reconciliation or restorative justice, or if necessary, meaning you can't do those exercise those type of remedies. So if necessary or requested by a party to the complaint, the director can assist them in taking the complaint to an adversarial resolution. I mean, that would be either MCAD, Attorney General's Office, EEOC, or like I said, the police department or the select board. I mean, all these bodies have real powers to give a complainant a real remedy. Also, the director at the request, and this is, another aspect to this related to the community relations function of the commission and the diversity office. The director at the request of the town administrator can use the resources of the diversity office to address complaints or problems that are not the subject of a complaint and may not initially have a discriminatory or racial aspect, but could escalate and be harmful to community relations. I mean, let me just give you a couple examples. We have a lot of conflicts between communities and developers in Brookline. That's the type of situation that maybe, right? Maybe the director, using the resources of the office, can step in and mediate that conflict and come to a good resolution. Right now, we address problems like that on an ad hoc basis, and that's fine, but it's not always the best way of doing it, and it doesn't always turn out with the best resolution. The commission itself has a role in the complaint process, but, and this is important, that role is appropriately limited. It can receive appeals of the director's determination as to plausibility. It can provide advice or a sounding board to the schools or to other town bodies facing complaints. And I'll talk about why it should be particularly appropriate, particularly ready to provide such advice or sounding board. And third, it has limited authority to review a complaint at the request of the complainant and provide the director with a perspective based on the credibility and expertise on issues of civil and human rights and community relations that Bylaw 3.14 always expected the commission to develop. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it has developed it to a significant degree, but that was what was expected. And I'll talk about that in a little more detail in a second. I need to mention one thing because some people think this is very important, and it is very important, but it's a little off the track. Warrant Article 31 addresses certain important jurisdictional matters by plainly eliminating the multiple places a complaint can be filed under the current system. If a complaint involves a town employee, including police town employees or school employees, the director does not get involved, nor does the commission. Rather, the director directs the complaint to the town's HR office, the school department's HR office, or the police complaint procedures. These are procedures that are currently operating or operative and are more appropriately handle these types of complaints. So let's get on to purpose B, as I mentioned, the two purposes of Warrant Article 31. Purpose B relates to the role of the director and the commission to ensure that Brookline evolves and remains a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. And that is the foundation of good and harmonious community relations, a purpose of warrant article or bylaw 3.14 from the very beginning. So this role has its origins in the original 2014 warrant article that established the Office and the Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. Warrant Article 31 labels these aspirational values as Brookline values. And I get in trouble for using Brookline values. People who say, who are you to define Brookline values? It's just a word I use to sort of illustrate that, you know, in Brookline, we aspire to living up to certain values of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And these values are also, as you may have noticed, the foundation of the complaint process, which is to say, the foundation of the complaint process is not to be punitive, but to try to find a way, if possible, to resolve complaints in a way that allows the parties to go forward and live in harmony here in our community. Beginning with the original 3.14 in 2014, it was always intended that the commission would be an expert body on civil and human rights and community relations. And there are various places in the bylaw that haven't been touched by Warrant Article 31. The commission was always intended and given the authority to develop expertise in human and civil rights and community relations. And you know, the bylaw contemplated a different commission than the current commission, and hopefully Warrant Article 31 will provide a basis for the commission to take on the responsibilities of community building that Warrant Article 31 offers it. We had new members of the commission who were voted by the select board last night, so I am hopeful that that will occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greene. And now we'll hear from Kia Zeal. Welcome. And you now have the floor.
Thanks. And thank you, Bernard, for that speedy review of your thing. I've read the most recent iterations as well as earlier versions of this warrant article, and I appreciate that certain amendments have taken have been put into it, but it leaves certain issues off the table. And I'd like to just dispute the history a little bit. The commission does have a complaint review process that was put in. Both Ernie and I worked on this with Tony Narrow back in the 2010s. I don't know if it was 16, 17, whatever. So there's a complaint process there. And the warrant article put forward last spring did not rule out reconciliation and other non-adversarial resolutions. So just to get to this, the main issues, this warrant article doesn't protect people's civil rights, and referral to these agencies that are listed can take months or years before the complaint gets responded to, and that's a very bad situation to be in. It also puts inappropriate and hurtful actions and behavior on an equal footing with issues of discrimination and bias. So it elevates disputes between neighbors to this, and therefore would take up a precious time. Employees and non-employees do not have equal rights. Commission members who wish to be involved, this is to address in these sorts of dispute resolutions or discrimination resolutions, could be trained in alternative dispute resolution. This is one of the complaints that was made about the May warrant article. Consultants could be hired. So one of the huge issues, I think, is this complaint process committee has worked for 2 years, working with town council and studying other communities, and came up with the warrant article in May that was modeled on some of these other municipalities. So I do not believe, Bernard has said it at our meeting, that he did not, and his co-petitioners did not do a similar review of other municipalities. Just in summary, I'd like to say too that this warrant article really is not ready. It's striking to me that the petitioners of warrant article 31 did not work with the people who've worked on this for 2 years very diligently to come up with some compromise. So I believe there will be an amendment filed to put this off so that the petitioners of warrant article 31 can work together with the petitioners of the warrant article from last May to come up with some resolution to this. I want to say too that committee continues to work with town council to try to come up with regulations within the bylaw that we currently have, which is based on the 2019 warrant article. And I think that, yeah, so hopefully these two groups can work together to resolve some of these conflicting issues. But I think there are major problems with this warrant article that people, yeah, when you look at it first, you say, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. But there are major issues, and people have been looking at this who know more about it than I do. So thank you.
Okay, now, just for the record, this warrant article 31 will be coming before town meeting for discussion. And to clarify, Ms. Zeal, Ms. van der Zeal, sorry, you're saying that it is expected that there will be proposed amendments to that warrant article at town meeting?
That is my understanding.
Well,
Okay.
let me just say, my understanding is that instead of amendments, there's going to be a motion to refer back to the commission.
Sorry,
Okay.
Bernard, you have the correct word.
All right, then I just want people to understand the status of the warrant article. Will be debated at town meeting after Thanksgiving, and there is likely to be a proposal to refer it, which will also be debated. So those both will have votes attached to them. So this discussion is preliminary to what will be taking place at town meeting. Now, are there some questions for either of our presenters? If so, on the bottom of your Zoom page, there's a little hand signal. Otherwise, you can actually raise your physical hand and we'll acknowledge you. Anybody have a question? I don't see any. Therefore, we shall move on to warrant article 15, which for which we have 3 possible presenters. And would you folks identify who's going first, or are you all? Oh, sorry, Bernard, you have a comment?
I have to run off to another meeting. I want to thank you, and if anyone has any questions later on, email me, and I'll try to respond. Okay,
and this will be recorded. It will become available, and presumably people will have a chance to think a little bit about it and then have more comments to make at town meeting. Anyway,
thank you.
Thank you very much. So on to Article 15. Did I hear somebody with it? I want to know under what order do petitioners wish to speak? Do you have?
I'll suggest this is I'm Bruce Levin, that I speak first, then A1, and then Chair.
Okay, that's
and bit of a cold, so I'll be quick.
all right.
And then Mike Salmon is going to do the impossible and try to explain the current license and conditions.
Right.
Absolutely anyone who is legally entitled to use marijuana can easily obtain it in Brookline. We have 4 licenses, 3 open. Coming up, not only are there several on Fenway, but the old Mary Ann's in Cleveland Circle is it's legally Boston, is opening one up. We have Mayflower right on our border. There are 2 more at Blanchard's, and they're coming just this week. in the Globe, there's an article, as recreational marijuana prices plummet in Massachusetts, medical sales slump. Consumers rejoice, but data suggests state's cannabis sector is stumbling amid increasing competition. Usually don't worry too much about the money of white billionaires, but the industry is having a real shakeout, and that presents problems that I'd like to avoid. One of them is, I just read an article in the Marijuana Business Journal, the leading industry publication, that it's so oversaturated in Canada that Canadian cannabis producers' unpaid tax bills soar as industry seeks response. They're doing so bad that they can't even get the money. Other thing is, we are partners, like it or not, with the current businesses. We get an extra 3%. We want and need them to be run correctly. And to be honest, I've become quite fond. I live right next door to Sanctuary, and I think they do a pretty good job. And, you know, after a horrible situation at Netta, that seems to stabilize. I don't think we're going to see the lines, but I do think, and one is going to talk about it, that we should maximize what we get, and having more stores is not going to do that. Two things I want to address is there is a moderators committee looking into various issues concerning marijuana. At town meeting, a member of the committee, and perhaps others, will address the issue that there's no overlap. What they are looking really has nothing to do with how many licenses the town needs. One of the problems, the social equity has been an absolute disaster here, as well as in other states where it's worse. Unfortunately, it costs several $1 million in entry fee, but I would urge people to look at, there are hybrids that are available, in which rather than having a retail front, you can have some warehouse space and then deliver from there. And I think there's something there, but having more stores, I really don't think is going to help the equity issues. Before I pass on the baton, I'd just like to say that what we're seeking is to have this a vote town-wide. I believe it'll cost something like $200 according to the town clerk. And people, since the vote in 2016 to legalize, which has been a great thing in many ways, have not had a say on it. Now that we have 4, now that we have an idea what's going on, what the landscape looks like, I don't think it's too much to ask to just let the voters once more take a look at the issue. Thanks, and I think I'll pass to
just
one.
like a quick information. I just want to be clear. You're talking about a ballot question to in effect.
Correct. Article 15 will put it on the ballot in May.
Okay, then if, just to be clear, in the steps that would happen, is town meeting will debate Article 15. If it is passed, then that matter will become a ballot question before townwide voters.
Yes.
Okay, just so that everybody is clear about the process. That would
Okay, and I'm around to answer questions. We have construction next door, so I'm going to mute things and pass it on to the next speaker.
Okay, A1 Wang, I believe you are the next speak
Yeah.
person.
So as Bruce mentioned, like that's the reason we would like to move forward with this one. And I would like to give you guys a very quick overview, and later on Shir can provide more information about the other points. All right, so this will be the change we proposed for the warrant article. So right now, the cannabis store is based on 20% number of a liquor store. That's what it is right now. So with like increase, like whatever the change in liquor store will impact cannabis store, which might make sense, might not make sense. So we would like to our town to make a decision. Should we want this one be fluctuated, or do we want to keep it? Because cannabis business is different from liquor business, so it should be independent instead of linked together. And so for this purpose of Warrant article, pretty much we would like that to put into the main pool, so the whole town can make the decision, so we can understand how our town to like want to wade into this one by themselves. So there's two choice. If we vote yes, and then it will be kept the cannabis store to no more than 4, and vote no, then would be like it would be the current, based on the current like liquor store license. So what changed? Why we do this? In 2016, there were no cannabis stores. So people, once we open it, people from like New Hampshire, everywhere will come over here, and at that time there's no delivery. Now we got plenty of cannabis store like over the whole states, and like there's a business would be have a lot of issue over here if we're adding more and more. Yeah, so right now, as you guys probably can see over here, within 5 miles of Brookline, 02446, and just 25 stores within 5 miles. So everybody who wants cannabis, they can get that easily without any problem. And right now we have 12 provisional licenses. Yeah, so no, I should sorry, there's in different towns, there's 12 provisional licenses is ongoing. So right now we did the Brookline public survey, and out of the 788 respondents, like 56% would like to keep it. So so if we would like, we have a new cannabis store, this will be the potential locations it can be. So a lot of them is pretty much very close to the school, and it's very easily to show to everybody, including our like teenagers, kids. So this portion later on, Shem probably will be provide more information. Pretty much just an impact for the young kids with a lot of new studies. Regarding the saturated market, right now in 2022, we collect 1 million revenue, and it used to be like 2-3 million earlier in 2020, and it's dropped to 1 million in 2021, and right now it's get even lower. So with a plummet like pricing, cannabis price, like based on the article Bruce mentioned earlier, it dropped 1/3, and more stores, it will be dropping even more, which is good for cannabis consumers. They can enjoy the low pricing, but there's no benefit for our town, because like we didn't collect more sales tax, we collect less sales tax, but we have a more administration required to monitor those stores and manage those like store impact for our town. So we need to have more police resources. We need to have like accounting, all those stuff. So the more store means more cost for us, but it means less revenue for us. So it's not a good investment for us. And definitely, like in order to fight each other for more sales, there would be a lot of advertising in our community, which would be a big impact for our kids, because it would be showing all the cannabis advertisement everywhere. Is that what we want to show in our town? And everybody come to Brookline, we see all the cannabis advertisement. Is that what we want for our town? Right. So would be the information from NIH or other. We have a lot more study after 2016 legalized. Before that, there's no way to doing the enough research because there's no data. It's all on the table. Right now, after 2016, there are more and more study. We collect more data. So it's about the time we should come back to review the data and calibrate what we want to do for the next. So the cost for a ballot question would be $130 range. So we check with our town. It's not too much burden for our town, but it can be a good benefit for our town to direct us what we want to do in the next few years. So we want you to support Warrant Article 15. Yeah, and Cheryl will provide more other information later on.
I'd just like a fact question follow-up.
Yeah.
Are you saying, if I understand correctly, and we'll hear more and probably get better detail from Mr. Sandman, but in order for there to be more marijuana retail stores, there would have to be more alcohol licenses issued because it's related to the number of alcohol licenses. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's a 20%. Based on that will be a state requirement.
If the town does not increase alcohol, there will be no more marijuana. Is that correct?
That would be, it will be fluctuate. Yeah, if there's normal, and then that will be keep stay. But right now, as you already seen, there's a lot of, I think we have a better question earlier to increasing the liquor store licenses. So it will be, it's connected, and there's no reason they should be connected. It should be a separate issue.
All I want to do is make sure everybody understands how they are connected. And in order, and I'm wearing my ancient select board hat saying that the way the marijuana licensing was initially set up was that marijuana licenses were dependent on the number of alcohol licenses. That's all. And we agree about that.
Yeah, that's good.
And your ballot question would simply disconnect that and make it an absolute number. Okay, Ms. Duffield, sorry, I hope we didn't take your comments.
No, I hope to be quick. Hi, my name is Sherry.
You have time, don't worry about it.
My name is Sherry Duffield. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 10, previously Precinct 6. I have 4 school-age children. 3 are at BHS. I was the Pierce PTO co-chair for 3 years. I'm on the BHS PTO executive committee. I'm a Scouts leader. I'm a room parent. I'm a cross-country coach for kids. I'm a crew parent and a cross-country parent. I know a lot of parents, and I am a parent. So speaking as somebody who speaks to a lot of parents, there's a lot of interest in parents, especially having a say in how this industry looks, what this industry looks like in our town. So, you know, we all have our own opinions on marijuana and why we want marijuana legalized, whether we use it or not. In my opinion, this Warrant article is less about how I feel about marijuana or how you feel about marijuana, and it's more about giving parents a direct voice and families and other residents, all residents of Brookline, all voters, a chance to weigh in on this industry that has been created in less than 10 years and has really changed dramatically and become a very big industry and also has a significant presence in our town. So as Awan said, there was an unscientific survey done in Brookline, and we had a slight majority of people wanting a cap. In my anecdotal discussions with other parents, people are really crying out for a way to weigh in and have their say on this. We are legally, this is our legal right as a town to put this to the people and ask them if they want a cap or how many stores they want. And as the other presenter said, this is not going to limit anyone's ability to access marijuana by a retail store or otherwise. There's plenty of medical marijuana. So access wouldn't be limited. There's lots of places to get it. What about social equity, right? I really wish we had, had the foresight to get this right from the start and have licenses issued to social equity applicants. That's a huge regret. Now that the market's saturated, it's unlikely that the licenses will be worth as much, but I would say that we have 8 licenses available right now for delivery and for courier, where you run a warehouse and then you deliver out of the warehouse, that are available in Brookline currently right now, and there's been no applicants. Also, there are no social equity applicants in the pipeline or that have been approved at any stage for a retail location. So there's nobody right now at the gate that we're going to block out. In addition, these other licenses that are available right now that have no applicants. So also social equity applicants can apply anywhere in the state. So they're not restricted to just Brookline. There's other opportunities where people haven't, towns that haven't issued all of their licenses yet. And what about money? Obviously the Community Impact Fund sunsets after a number of years. So there may be incentive by the town to keep opening stores to kind of get new revenue coming in. I don't know that people will find that the most compelling reason to not put a cap, but it's something to consider. Again, this is really not about my view. It's about us letting people in Brookline, voters who are sophisticated and can really understand all these issues, having a vote. That's really all I have to say on this. We have a lot more information. Every day there's articles coming out about the health impacts of this new kind of marijuana, which is very different from the marijuana we had in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. There's information about the impacts on youth. There's information about the impacts of smoking cannabis being worse than tobacco. So other constituents I'm talking to, other parents, are seeing all this information, processing, making their own conclusions, and want a chance to weigh in. So I'm just asking that we vote yes on Warrant Article 15 to make a ballot question for the spring that would let the townspeople vote on whether or not to have a cap on only marijuana retail outlets at 4. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question quickly, which is, as you have identified yourself as a very well-networked parent, are there examples now of youth having marijuana which should be illegal?
So my kids who are at the high school definitely know that marijuana is around. They haven't been able to say this is directly coming from stores. The only thing I would say, is, in my personal opinion, my kids were going to school at the old Lincoln School, and kids walked past Netta every day. And I think Netta's calmed down a bit, but when it was they were doing this, it was this heyday of being very busy. So everyone was aware of what it was. And I think it does normalize it and destigmatize it. Some people will think that's fine. There's no problem with that. Other people might say that's going to lower the barrier, the threshold for kids to try it and to use it. But I don't have direct evidence that kids are getting product from any of the retailers, but it is around.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Sandman, we welcome you and invite you to unmute yourself first.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
And please help us understand again how marijuana licensing has been approved by the town and its relationship to liquor licenses, and anything additional you wish to add.
Sure. So the state law that enabled the sale of recreational marijuana set this limit of 1 marijuana store for every 5 package stores, basically. And the reason for that is to set a ratio, essentially, between the population and the number of stores. And if you put a cap on the number of stores, then you're breaking that ratio. And whether the ratio, the right ratio is 1 to 5 or excuse me, or something else is really beside the point. That is the ratio that was chosen. And it doesn't make, excuse me. See if caffeine helps. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, at least, to change it without really recognizing what you're doing. Population of Brookline is going to change. It's going to go up. It went up by 5,000 people between the 2010 census and the 2020 census, and it will continue to go up. And there will be more customers. It doesn't make a lot of sense to underserve those customers any more than it would to say, well, we're only going to have three package stores, and if people want to buy their alcohol somewhere, they can go to Newton, go to Boston, whatever. There are all these other stores around. The ratio is not meant to serve people from out of town. It's meant to serve people in town. And there's no question that the sales of marijuana have gone down in Brookline as the number of stores outside have increased. But they're staying in business. They're still making a profit. The market, that number of stores is, as I say, sized for the market. And the licensing process is the social equity question of licensing is a really interesting one. I guess my question for the proponents would be, why haven't you put an exception in this for social equity licenses? There's no indication that that's really what you're concerned about here. What you want is an absolute cap on the number of stores. If a social equity applicant came along, would you say, well, okay, we'll let that additional applicant apply even though there's a cap? I don't think so. 70% of the people of Brookline voted to legalize marijuana in the state referendum. And they recognized that just like prohibition of alcohol was a failure in the 1920s and 30s, the prohibition of marijuana was a failure. Prohibition of alcohol brought crime, and it brought death from moonshine made with wood alcohol and all sorts of things. And the same thing happened with marijuana. Making it illegal brought crime, and it brought adulterated marijuana. And the proponents of Article 15 are right. Marijuana has changed since the 70s and the 80s. It's gotten safer because it's made, it's produced in a very tightly regulated environment. So for all of these reasons, I think the current licensing mechanism is the appropriate one to stick with. I'd be very surprised if the residents of Brookline changed that. And honestly, I think it would be, you could say, well, let's let them decide. But we're going to have two overrides on that ballot: one for Pierce in May, and one for an operating override. And this will be a distraction that, quite honestly, we don't need. We need to get voters to focus on the really significant issues that the town faces with regard to school capacity, capital projects, and funds for operating. So I hope that town meeting will turn this down for really all of those reasons. Thank you.
All right, and sure, you guys want to answer maybe A1?
Yeah.
I don't know who's.
All right, yeah, so let me answer the social equity portion, right? So right now we have a 4 store. None of those will be social equity like owners. And as you can see right now, as Mr. Cinnamon mentioned, our population increases, but our sales dropped. So what's happening? What's happening? So is that more population means more sales, which more revenue for us? No, that's a reality. So for social equity person, if we adding one more store, the 5th store for them, we are killing them. We kind of bully them because the other 4 store already have their business. The 5th store coming in, they are social equity. They earn no money and then potentially get a bankrupt because they don't have any good things for them. A customer for them. So the best thing for the social equity is we should remove one of the store right now and then have the social equity taking over that. That would be social equity, the justice for them, instead of have them to put them into the a bad situation and then have them to fight for just marginal, already reduced, like market. So capping to the 4 actually is good for the social equity instead of just like adding more store later on. It's not responsible for them. The other thing is like capping to the 4 would have a good thing for us, because once we have the cap, all those stores right now, they need to be performed. If they don't perform well, then they got a chance not to renew. If we continue to add more, they have no pressure for them. So how we manage this? We need to cap it to make sure we can monitor them and then review them every time when it's need to renew the license. If they don't do well, in whatever reason, they got the chance to lose them. So I think that would be something we should like focus on. The cap has more benefit for us. The other thing for the ballot question, because right now we already have additional 2, so pretty much there's no cost for us to add that into the ballot question. It's already been there, right? And it's not distract because it's totally 2 different things. So for us, it doesn't matter how many questions. If you are involved into this one, you want to have your voice to be heard. So because we already have those 2 additional 2 over there, there's no cost for us to add in the 3rd one. And then people who are interested, they can have their voice. So I think that's really important for our town to make a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Okay, now we have the opportunity for questions. If people have questions, would you please use the raised hand thing at the bottom of the screen, or you can put your own very hand up and wave it, and we will recognize you. Any questions, anybody? Okay, I think I see a few running across. We'll start with Ms. Silverman. You have a question?
Thank you, Betsy, and thanks to all of the speakers who have been very enlightening and elucidating. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, can you please define a social equity license? And the second question is this type of license offered to other types of retailers?
Okay, anybody want to take that one on, Mr. Sandman?
No, I'd be very interested in hearing what the proponents of this article say, and which of the 4 stores they think should lose their license if the social equity applicant comes along.
Take that one, Ms. Duffield?
Yeah, I don't have the definition in front of me, but it's people from populations that have been negatively harmed by the criminalization and prosecution of marijuana in the past. And specifically, there's a category for people who have been charged and have a criminal record due to marijuana. So those 2 populations of people, generally from populations that have been harmed by the war on drugs, and people who have been who have a criminal record because of it. As far as I know, there's no other licenses we have in town that apply like this. So this industry is unique because of the history of harming specific groups of people for a long time in very specific ways. So this was an opportunity to kind of, make amends as we start this new, very profitable industry, to try to create opportunities for people who have been unfairly and, severely damaged to try to participate in this large, new, profitable industry.
Thank you. Ms. Vanderzeel.
Yes.
Okay, you have to unmute. Okay.
Yeah, no, it takes me a second to get over there with my mouse, so sorry. Let me just lower my hand so I don't forget to do that. I'm curious about, I've got two questions essentially. This survey that you characterized as unscientific, when was it done? How many were surveyed? Was there an actual number put on the cap, or just the idea that there should be a cap? which is very different from capping it at 4 or 5 or 3 or whatever you want to do. That's one question. And then the other thing, one of you said the market is saturated, and it looks like it is. There are 8 licenses available and there are no applicants. So why do we need to cap anything? It just I mean, it's already capped at 4. So why do we need to enshrine it at 4 just on the off chance that we might get more liquor licenses because our population has grown some?
So Elizabeth Schaefer just commented on the survey.
Yeah. So
And I guess it did not.
Well, the survey, okay, for everybody's information, if you look in the chat,
Yeah.
there is a link to the survey. So you can link to it and see what it has to say. And Elizabeth Schaefer has said, survey numbers mentioned are not accurate. It's true that 56% of respondents wanted a cap, but it refers to any cap at all. And this includes 20% of package stores we already have. It also includes a cap set at any specific number, which could be more than 4 licenses. 66% were in favor of the 20% of package stores or no cap at all. But anyway, you now have the link to the actual survey.
okay, so and what about the market saturated thing? So why do we need to put a
If
cap?
I can answer that. So there was recently a New York Times article about Toronto, and Toronto had a situation like we did with Netta, where the first retailer that opened was very successful and it attracted a lot of other retailers. And it got to the point where, I forget the numbers, but there were 400, something like this, retailers in Toronto taking advantage of empty storefronts and low rents. And so it became where you'd walk down the street and every 4th storefront was a marijuana shop, basically meaning that even though people were late to the game and they were unlikely to be profitable and they're going out of business now and landlords are having trouble collecting rent, it's still a tantalizing opportunity to get involved with the prospect. Yeah, 400 is very different from 4. Yeah, of course. Of course. I'm just saying, you know, that's my personal opinion that we, you know, absolutely it's 400 is different from 4, but I think that people will enter the industry whether or not the business case is the most solid. I just am saying, I think this is part of the law, is that the towns and the people can have a direct vote on what they want as a cap. And regardless of this survey, the reason I got involved is that in my discussions with other parents, people want to exercise that right to vote.
So just a follow-up to that. So this cap sounds like it's a way to protect potential business owners from going bust. That's so awfully strange that we would do something like that. But maybe, I mean, that's what you guys are, you essentially have said that. Some of you.
It's not for the business owners. It's really for the people to have the right to vote on this.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I'm kind of like twisting my words, but really for me, it's about that. I've talked to people who want to have a voice in how this industry is shaped in Brookline, as is our right under the law.
And you could argue, I suppose, that there are some unintended consequences of that decision or desire.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Mr. Sandman, you have your hand raised.
Right. I think I'd just like to respond to the point that sales have gone down per store. And of course, that's inevitable because when Netta opened, it was the only store within 128, within the 128 belt. And certainly the operators of all of the stores recognize that they're ultimately going to serve a local population. Nobody's going to drive from Gloucester to Brookline in order to get marijuana. They're going to find a store in Gloucester. And similarly, nobody's going to drive from Brookline to Gloucester because there are stores here. So certainly the total sales of marijuana within Brookline, whether there are 4 stores or 10 stores, is going to remain about the same, unless the store owners succeed in persuading people who don't use marijuana, and I happen to be one of the people who does not use marijuana. unless somebody comes out and persuades me to try it. Not very likely. So sure, there's a certain equilibrium that is now reached in terms of sales per store. And that level of sales per store it's pretty clear to anybody who wants to enter the business. And so you're looking at people who are interested in delivery or interested in courier service, and they're saying to themselves, well, what's my market going to be? Is it worth the cost? There's a high cost to getting in because it's so heavily regulated. And they're making a business decision not to get in. So we're not going to have all of those licenses taken up because there's the people who might be interested in the business recognize that there's a limited market.
So one question that's in the chat, and I will leave it to one of you marijuana, or one of you petitioners to comment. Why did the petitioners not pursue an attempt to change the law in order to delink marijuana licenses from liquor licenses? Anyone want to answer? If so, yeah, Sharon, you can.
Sure. Just again, simply as when I read it, and it's been a little while, but that currently the towns have the right to set the amount of retailers by a direct vote to the people. It seemed the most straightforward approach given the law we voted on when we legalized marijuana.
I think that's a pretty clear answer. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Bruce, you have your hand up.
Yes, if I just may answer that. Cambridge took their time, and their first recreational one is social equity. You know, we made our decision, and who owns it really doesn't change that. But I note that just this week, Sean Combs, Puff Diddy, what a very successful rapper in the 90s, bought 3 stores in Massachusetts, 3, I believe, in Illinois in production for $185 million. The fact that we have 4 does not mean that people with the money cannot get into it. As a matter of fact, Netta is not the original owner. It was sold a few years ago, and they actually had a deal to sell it again, which fell through and the market kind of collapsed at the price. But I think most of the people in it now are not looking to make a living over the years, one joint at a time. And if someone can get the money together, and that's the big if, there's no reason they can't buy one of them. We don't necessarily have to increase the number. Other thing I'd like to mention is that the tether with liquor stores makes no sense. I don't know why it shouldn't be marriage licenses or dog licenses. It's really a whole different animal. And the reason we're not pursuing it on the state level is I think that's something we'd like to do, but we want to take care of Brookline first. And I'd like to mention, I'm almost surprised it wasn't done, in that the recent amendments were incredibly in favor of the industry, and it's made it very hard in a lot of ways for people to get in, but it's making it a lot. The municipalities lost a lot of power. That's now going to the CCC over it, which is another reason we did the 4 very quickly. But I think that is, you know, in hindsight, that looks bad. But part of the reason was to not get it forced upon us, which would happen if we didn't have the formula.
Thank you. Now, just one, and I'll take another question in a minute, but one observation that I would like to make, and that is that even though I understand and appreciate and support the notion of social equity being part of this, driving this, you could use the same status or standard with a variety of other things. But my point is that we're talking about things that are market driven. no matter how you change your view or how you change, well, to some extent, regulation makes a difference, but it's still going to be market driven, and that will have a huge impact on either the number of people who wish to have a license or the number of successful licenses. And that's a factor over which I fear the regulatory process has very little control. Anyway, Ms. Silverman, your hand's up.
Thank you again, Betsy. I'm wondering, has there been a survey of the amount of waiting time per store in Brookline for customers to be served as compared to that of neighboring communities?
If I may, there has not been a survey. I have a view of the parking lot for Sanctuary. So what was once over 15 minutes is now from people parking, going in, going out. They really don't want you to linger. I'd say it's well under 5 minutes, maybe even under 4 now. People are calling and picking up. In one way, I think stores are dinosaurs. In California, they're looking at direct to consumer with delivery, which is not available to everyone, but won't be changed by the number of the stores. It's a federal issue. You can't test it. You can't hang out. I think the stores are dinosaurs. And while I tend to be a free market Chicago economist, as I said earlier, we're partners. And I want to see the town get the most, do what it does to get the most money it can.
And just for the record, in the chat, we have a comment that says there's no waiting time. I can speak at least as a sort of intermittent observer of Netta, which happens to be near my neighborhood, that what used to be a long line has vanished entirely. And what you see is few people coming in and few people going out. So it doesn't seem to have a waiting problem anymore.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from anybody? We have run over our time a bit, in part because this is an important discussion on a topic that will be voted by town meeting and may then again be subject to a town-wide ballot question. So I really appreciate everyone's contributions. I hope this has helped people to understand a little better the whole situation having to do with marijuana licensing. And I hope that this will empower the voters some way who watch the video, I hope, to understand better the issues that are involved, because the video, fortunately, will become available. And even if there is a town meeting vote to approve and it becomes a ballot question, people can look up the video to see what information we were able to share. So I thank you all. And as they say, good night, or is it good afternoon or good morning?
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.